One more note I want to make for sure, and that's this. When we're talking about being able to do international voice, we can do a couple of things. One is we can actually say that there are certain languages our voice operator should not operate in if we actually wanted or needed to exclude certain countries and needed to make the point that we don't operate in those countries. And part of the way that we would make that point, perhaps, is to say, I'm sorry, I cannot help you in that language. I can help you in English or, in French or, whatever the native language was that was being spoken when asked about, can you help in this other language? So there's that. Another thing I want to say is this. Probably the biggest way to multiply your business hundreds of times is to be accessible to the entire world. And I'm not just speaking to those of you who want to get websites from us that work this way, like the whole big systems that we have, but DML, when we're talking about making voice offers open to a lot of B2B, okay, then many of the B2B options that we have are going to want to do a couple of things. One is to offer translations in different languages because that's not just good customer service, but there are communities of people who do not speak English in many sections of the US. And so they are stuck, kind of holed in and unable to reach out. They'll try. They'll go to Google and say, I need house painting, but I only speak Hindi. Are there any, who are the Hindi house painters? Okay, that's the same for I got a DUI, but I only speak Japanese. Or whatever it is that the situation is. I think you can follow along. There are tons and tons of situations like that. So there are lots and lots of these people having great trouble getting the help they need because their English is so limited, and so the companies who bother to make the offers in those different languages can accommodate them all, at least virtually all of them. And that's true as we move further forward. So I do want to make this point. Okay. There is need for AI to be able to handle things over the phone. I was talking about filling in a questionnaire and emailing off copies, of the questionnaire being filled in. That's one. It's great. If you have guys who you always have to send a questionnaire and they always have to fill it in, wouldn't it be nice if they could just call in and do the questionnaire over the phone? I've had some people say, well, not so many people will use it, maybe. I'll say, how do you know? Not just that, but if only one person in 10 uses it, then it was a screaming success. It's customer support taken to the next level. The other thing, your form is static in one language, right? So then what if they say, I'm sorry, I can't fill in this form. Can you send me one in Spanish? Well, if you don't speak Spanish and you're not web savvy and you've been doing your business forever, you probably don't know how to do that, do you? What if you didn't have to? What if the whole thing was able to be done over the phone? We set up your questionnaire on the phone, and then on the phone, we allow the speaker to use pretty much any language they would speak, and then create the version of the answers in both languages and send you a copy of both, send them a copy of both. That way, it's crystal clear. You know what I say any company should just do to see if the form translated correctly? You've got the version that got translated to English, right? And you got whatever language is spoken. And you're thinking, well, I wonder how close a match it is. How do I tell? You know what I would do? Take their original, which you got as like a Word document or a PDF or on text or however it came to you as a questionnaire. Take that, probably a Word doc, right? Or a text file. Take that. Or you just ask them in the email body, copy it. Put it in one or another chat system and see if it still translates pretty much the same as what you got on your form, right? Just dummy check it. Check a couple of translators, right? You could always say translate them, retranslate through a few translators and see if the end result's the same as what you got. But you don't need to go too far. Just do a second check, third check. Just make sure that the answers look about the same. And that way you know what's going on. Okay. Now, the final big, huge step, I think, in this world is going to be party calls, multi-party calls. In other words, 2, 3, 4 people on the phone. because it could even be partners from different countries. What if you had a financial backer from Arabia, Saudi Arabia, say? What if Dubai? What if you had a vendor in Shanghai? What if you have a customer service guy from the Philippines on the phone? And what if you're trying to have that conversation comfortably with everyone, right? You know how often we could but can't simply because of that whole Tower of Babel concept? Tower of Babel, or is it Babel? Babel, but hence the word Babel. So what if one of the callers on that party call, we do a party call and we invite the AI assistant and we just tell it how many people are on the call and the language is being spoken. And its job is on demand when it's told, okay, go ahead and translate, right? Whenever somebody goes blah, 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 okay, translate that. Okay. Then we can even tell it the preferred order in which to do the translations. First translate to Japanese, then translate to Tagalog, then translate to, German if you're in Germany. I mean, there might not be an English speaker in the group. And the AI assistant can figure that out immediately, and it can actually handle that. It could keep the conversation up. So the only bigger, wilder way to go about that is to have more than just one AI assistant. You have one that each guy calls as a party line. So everyone who calls in has a party line assistant. And that assistant will just translate from whatever it hears to that guy's language. So that's 4 times as expensive, say, for everything. I mean, it's twice as many phone calls being made, an assistant for everybody. But it is better service and it's faster. Everyone doesn't have to wait for 3 or 4 translations of everything being said, right? It's just everyone gets their translation right here, right now. And that is awesome. So then you could always decide how you're going to answer back and everything. That's just party rules and the kind of thing that whether we create those rules or people create those rules or we build default rules into the system and allow people to override the rules, whatever. And no, we're not doing that today. We've got enough on our plate. But what I'm saying is it's always important to know that these are functions that we can put into motion and we can do it pretty much anywhere. And the answer is yeah. The only issue we have right now is phone calls overseas are more expensive. So if we were going to have that party line, we would want to do it in such a way that we can avoid phones overseas. That would be like the idea of doing it on Zoom and having a local translator next to you. Now that might bring us back full circle to the case where you don't even need a specialized service for that particular session. You would just use your own Chat GPT on your phone while you're sitting on Zoom. But there are many times when you're working with somebody you didn't know who doesn't have a chat setup, a GPT setup, or anything like it. They don't have an AI translator. And you are on the phone with a stranger who's probably older. Okay? So for them, until the day comes that everyone naturally has an AI translator in their pocket and knows it, there are still lots of people that don't have that happening, and they don't really know it. And they have trouble doing this, okay? And if you want to operate worldwide, then you probably have a number of calls to make in a local community before you even get your partners found or your potential partners found, your distributors and stuff. I'm just saying that it's important to keep track of the power because when we talk to businesses, whether it's DUI or accident attorneys, whether it's alcohol, drug and abuse rehab, whether it's anything else, they all have need and they sort of recognize it more than ever to be multilingual because otherwise they're losing out on all the money of all those clients they could be accepting, but they can't, that their competitor can now accept. Okay? That's a big deal because it doesn't matter what language you speak, you're probably making a decent wage or a livable wage. A lot of people are no matter what. And so that's a lot of money. And usually it's stuck finding it uncomfortable operating with you unless you learn that there doesn't need to be a barrier. By the way, my wife asked me, she said, what if we're traveling with my parents who her parents don't speak English? So always my wife's doing the translations. So, and so what happened? She said, if now you can have perfectly natural conversations with them, that's good. But what if then your style comes out more than they ever thought? And so you look very different to them, maybe not as cool. And I said, aha, we can absolutely say before the calls, hey, when we do the translation, be courteous, let's not offend anybody, and so on. I can give my prompt simple rules to follow. That way, and you can picture it already. The guys are sitting in the group meeting, and they're all saying, well, you're going to have the crap detail, unfortunately, while all of us have it better, but you're the newbie to the table, so I'm sorry, but that is your department, so you're just going to have the crap. Sorry, we're just going to shovel our crap here. And that guy's response is in his language or hers. And for a while, you're thinking, ugh, they sound angry and they're talking fast and they're flustered and they're standing up and their face is turning purple and they're pounding their fists and they're sweating and their voice is rising and their eyes are bulging. I don't want to know what they're saying verbatim. Can you just give me a digest of, a summary of what they meant, without all of the emotion built into it? And the answer is yeah, exactly. So these things can be set up in such a way very automatically to allow people to be however they want. And it doesn't have to mess up anything. It doesn't have to be a first impression is wrong kind of thing. You can also say, try to translate humor literally or use the closest approximation in the destination language. You can do things like that. So that way things that would not translate contextually will now. Because if I say he's got bats in the belfry, in the belfry, he's missing a card in the deck, things that would not translate verbatim. In Russian, you would say his roof has gone slanted, and that means he's got a few loose bolts, right? So this will do that translation for you. You'll say he's missing some bolts. I don't want to work with him. And they will hear his roof has gone crooked. I don't want to work with him. And they'll be like, oh, I get it. Okay, we won't talk about that guy anymore. Let's move on. Okay? So yeah, just letting you know. All this is very, very real, very, very important. And it's really important that we made this functionality work. Okay.